Coming up, a blizzard of debt. That story topping tonight's 2-minute drill. Our panel, we have Penn Financial's Matt McCall, FBN Financial's Lindsay Piegza, and in D.C. now, Democratic Fox News contributor Leslie Marshall. Let's fire up the clock. A new warning tonight for President Obama to dig the nation out of debt before it's too late. The Democratic director of the Congressional Budget Office says we have to cut the $1.5 trillion deficit now rather than merely freeze current spending, as the president said we should do in his State of the Union. He also says that Social Security is already running a deficit, $45 billion for 2011. Social Security will run deficits permanently for another 26 years before they run out of reserves entirely, according to the CBO. So tell the president what department you want to cut now, man.
What department to cut now? I think Social Security is a great place to start. I have to agree with that.
How, though? By raising the retirement age?
We have to raise the retirement age and also realize that to the young people out there right now that they cannot rely on Social Security, too. I think that's extremely important for people to understand. That's not going to save us money, but at least it's realistic. Raise the age. I mean, come on. People are living longer. People need to work longer. That's where you start, though. That's just the start.
Do you think you'll ever get a Social Security check?
No.
Do you think, Lindsay, you'll ever get a Social Security?
No, I really don't.
Really?
No.
And I tell my clients that, too, David.
Wow. So do we start with Social Security?
Well, I think we do. We have to tackle the big three, Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security. But look, what's so interesting is the CBO reports that we're about 60% in terms of debt to GDP. But if you look at the IMF number, which includes future entitlements, we're closer to 85%.
Yeah, it's awful.
So the time
it's
is now.
But
We
Leslie,
can't put it off any further.
I'm kind of shocked that 2 out of the 3 panelists here say they don't think they're ever going to get a Social Security check.
Okay, count me in, guys. I don't think I'm going to see one either. And you know what? Although it's unattractive, left or right, nobody wants to talk about cutting Social Security or Medicare. It's not popular, especially when you have 10,000 people a day becoming seniors for 19 years.
Paul Ryan has talked about it. He put together a plan. Now, the Republican leadership is backing away from it. They don't want to touch him with a 10-foot pole right now because it's the third rail. But we'll see what happens. Well, the number of Obamacare waivers suddenly soaring last month. The number of unions and businesses getting exemptions from the controversial law going from 222 to 733 in just 1 month. Nearly 1 million workers are now exempted. Is this more evidence that Obamacare needs to be repealed and replaced? And I got to tell you, Lindsay, what I can't stand more than anything else is elitism. And when you have an elite group that don't have to do what everybody else has to do, I think there's a problem.
Oh, definitely. And the way that you pick these, basically going in and cherry picking union membership, certain businesses that are exempt. Look, the justification for this waiver was to protect individuals that were either going to face reduced benefits or skyrocketing premiums.
Right.
Now, this is exactly what Obamacare had originally promised was not going to happen.
Leslie, it kind of reminds me of some of the bad banks that got TARP bailouts that shouldn't have, like One United, for example, just because they had friends who were congressmen who were able to get them the TARP money. When you have these connections getting you things that the rest of us can't get, it rubs me the wrong way, doesn't it you?
Well, I got to tell you, if we're talking about mini-med packages like with large corporations like McDonald's, this was an area that I don't think, honestly, even the Democrats had looked through and pushing through, quite frankly, and I said too hastily, the health care reform legislation. The president already said if something is broken, needs to be fixed or tweaked, he is willing to do what needs to be fixed or tweaked. But repealing, David, to repeal something doesn't mean you replace it. If you repeal it, it means you throw it out.
I understand, and there's some things like 1099 I think that both the president and Republicans could agree on. But again, the whole elitist aspect, that if you're friends with folks in the White House, you know, whether you're a big corporate exec or a union, you get an exemption.
Yeah, what happened to the change that we were bringing to Washington? It's just politics as usual.
Exactly.
It's exact, and it's actually almost worse. I think right now, if you're on the side of Obama, you can get whatever you want.
All right, well, despite the cold in many parts of the nation, global warming alarmists continue to claim that big ice formations are melting. But German and American researchers just reporting that the Himalayan glaciers are actually getting larger. Now, does this discredit the UN scientists who until very recently were saying exactly the opposite, Leslie?
No, because if you look at the glaciers in our own country, Alaska, the state of, I cannot see that from my yard, by the way, but in Alaska, sorry, couldn't resist. In Alaska, the glaciers are, I give to this fund to save the polar bears, and they send me all of this, you know, all this information. And so the Himalayas are one area where they may be getting larger, but that is not, that's the exception, not the rule right now.
Again, some places are getting larger, some places are getting, guess what? That's the fickleness of nature. That shows that there's not a consistency here, right?
There's not a consistency. And how do you look at this? How do you really study what happened thousands of years ago? So there's a lot of speculation in my mind. And if anybody who lives in New York, this is not global warming. Come on.
Not global
For
warming.
every glacier that is retreating, we see that scientists can prove another is advancing or holding steady. So what we need to do is take away any sort of further funding or, specifically take away Al
We don't
Gore's
base a $1 trillion
Nobel Peace Prize.
tax and cap on
No,
the basis
certainly
of
not.
this size. All right, coming up on deck, lessons on success and winning from Vince Lombardi, the man who plays the legendary coach on Broadway, Dan Lauria, teaming up with Jets owner Woody Johnson for a very special Playmakers you don't want to miss coming next. And President Obama is no Ronald Reagan. If you believe that, it's a buy. If you don't, it's a sell. If you're not sure, it's a hold. Text 369-249. And standing by is Judge Andrew Napolitano and Freedom Watch Judge, who's on the show tonight. It's time for buy, sell, or hold. We take the names and stories in the news. We treat it as if they're stocks. Would you buy them, sell them, or hold them? Well, if you hope to attend this year's Super Bowl, you got to be ready to part with some gold on StubHub.com. There are just about 2,000 tickets available, and prices range from $2,500 for a seat in the upper corner above the end zone at Cowboy Stadium. That ain't too bad, but $22,000 is how much it's going to set you back for a lower level seat on a 50-yard line. The face value of the tickets is about $600 to $1,200. So the Super Bowl tickets, Matt McCall, I can see you buying one of those for $22,000.
Oh, if the Eagles were there, I would pay, honestly, whatever
would.
it takes. I would pay anything. But I'm selling this because what's happened with the Super Bowl, the real fans aren't going anymore. This is more corporations, celebrities. It's not the fans actually love the game.
Well, had Chicago gone to the Super Bowl, you would have had a ticket, right? Because you're a season ticket holder to the Bears.
That's right, but they didn't. So unfortunately, I'm going to have to be a sell on this one.
A
The
sell.
fans aren't going. I agree with Matt. It's
Leslie,
too expensive.
$22,000 a pop. What do you think?
I'm a poor liberal. Sell. I don't have the money
Come
for
on.
this.
Come on. You're a rich liberal. Rich at heart, anyway. I've been selling this, too. And Scoreboard, you sell. Well, if you're lucky enough to have a ticket for the Super Bowl in Dallas, you might want to think twice about driving to the game. Parking near the stadium is going, get this, for upwards of $1,000 a pop. That's more than the list price of some of the tickets for the game. As we just mentioned, as an alternative, fans can park at a nearby amusement park and shuttle in for $75, but $1,000. Now, okay, say that Philadelphia had won, and you paid $22,000 for a ticket. Would you buy a parking spot for another $1,000?
No, but you know what I would do? I'm going to buy this because this is entrepreneurship. I'd hire a couple people, rent some cars, and I'd have a
Nice
service and take people
idea.
there.
I would take the shuttle for $75. I
You think
it's
it's
much
a
more
sell?
reasonable.
Leslie, buy, sell, or hold?
I'm selling. I mean, how many kids could we feed for $1,000? Please, this is. Are we in a bad economy?
Maybe that's what they're going to do with the profit. Who knows?
Oh,
I'm a buy
I'm
for this.
sure.
Matt, I think you're right. I think it's a terrific idea. And Scoreboard says it's a sell. Say goodbye to the color-coded terror warnings. The Obama administration plans a simpler two-tier system. Imminent threat, elevated threat. Only those two. The new warnings are going to have information about the specific threat and will tell you what action to take or what to look out for. So revamping the alert system, Matt?
I think it needs to be revamped. I don't know if the two color is really what I want, but I really don't understand it. I mean, is it orange? I mean, it really doesn't get the point across in my mind.
I'm a buy. I think we need a simpler system. Orange, yellow, I'm not sure which one's higher.
Leslie, buy?
I'm a sell. We don't need any system. We should always be on guard because there are bad guys out there. They're trying to get the good guys. And if we're going to have color coding, can we put something like fuchsia or mauve
Please,
versus
no,
orange
we
and red?
can't. No, the answer is we can't, Leslie, and I'm not buying this change. All right, Walmart is dropping plans to build a store near a Civil War battle site. The retailer won local approval to build a store near the Wilderness Battlefield in Northern Virginia, but residents and preservationists want the court to stop it. Walmart decided to avoid the fight, so Walmart leaving the Civil War site. Is that a buy, sell, or
It's a
hold?
great PR move by Walmart. I think it's the right move as well.
One buy,
I agree. I think it was a good move.
two buys, Leslie?
Pick your battles.
Definitely by 30,000 people approximately lost their lives there. It's respect. I think they did the right
We
thing.
all agree on this when it's a buy, and Scoreboard says it's a buy as well. Okay, the big one. President Obama is no Ronald Reagan. If you believe that, it's a buy. If you don't, it's a sell. What do you
Absolutely, I believe that. He can't even compare the two in my mind.
think? Okay.
Obama is all for big government. Reagan was not. It's
Two
not
buys.
even a comparison.
Leslie, all these folks in Time Magazine and elsewhere, they're saying they're the same thing. What do you think?